Hey, what is going on with y'all, man? It is Black Balloon, and I'm coming back with another video, so y'all already know what's going on. Now, in this video, I want to go back and revisit a few things about Biggie. Now, this comes after I watched a clip with Gene Deal on the channel that he always does interviews on, The Art of Dialogue, right? I've always thought Gene Deal was a pretty genuine guy. And in this particular clip where he talks about, Diddy lying to Biggie moms, and he gives like details on how he had to carry or help carry and put Biggie's body on a stretcher after he died, and he talked about how it traumatized him. And I thought the clip was very interesting because it brought up, P. Diddy, obviously. And for me, Biggie doesn't really get talked about as much as Pac's death, And since all this stuff has happened with P. Diddy, we're coming to find out that Diddy had a hand in both deaths. And so I thought in this video we would go ahead and revisit a couple things, and I definitely want to show y'all the interview that Diddy did a little bit after Biggie died, and he was like smirking and basically grinning the entire interview. And everyone in the comments, even years before all of this lawsuit stuff came out, was talking about how they just knew Diddy was, a snake just off of that interview alone. I'm going to let y'all watch it. And I've actually showed it on the channel when I first did the Biggie video back 2 years ago, I think. So now I think it's proper to go ahead and bring a piece of that clip back around just so I can get y'all opinion on it. Because like I said, a lot of people talk about Pac's death and, Biggie death, to me, across the board, doesn't get covered as much. But I really found this Gene Deal clip to be real interesting, y'all. So with that being said, man, check this out.
When it comes to Biggie's murder, do you think Diddy should be held accountable?
No doubt. I didn't think that way, because I too was traumatized in a way, to be totally honest. When you pull somebody out the car and they done pissed and they done shit on themselves, and you got that dead weight in your hand, and you got to sit down there and tell this man mother, what you heard, what you saw, after this dude that lied to his mother. That's trauma, bro. I don't care how hard you is. And Biggie ain't the only dude that I've seen get murdered at a party, or being murdered. But he's the only one that I had to grab in my hands and carry and help put him on a gurney, a stretcher. He's the only one that I gotta constantly hear his music on the radio. He's the only one that I can't get Miss Wallace out of my mind when she grabbed both of my hands and said, I don't want to hear no more, with tears in her eyes, man. To have an experience like that for probably and arguably the world's greatest rapper of all time, that's crazy, bruh. So now, he's responsible for not having enough security. He's responsible for having Big there. He's responsible for not listening to security by telling them, if we go to this party, one of us gonna die tonight. Somebody gonna get killed tonight. They coming to kill us, Puff. I want these kids to know ain't no party that big. Ain't no party that good. Ain't no party you should go if you feel or you told that you may not go home. He owed Ms. Wallace. He owed Ms. Wallace. And I didn't feel that way at first until I heard it said on another YouTube show when Clark Kent said that Big told him the only reason he was going to that party is because D-Rock and Puff set it up for them to go.
And you said when you got Biggie out the court, he was what?
My man, he had urinated and he had shit on himself.
Wow, man. So with all that being said, what do you think should happen to Diddy for Biggie murder?
Like I said, I'm not the judge, I'm not the jury. I think that way back then, because of Arista Records and Bad Boy, knowing that there was threats, and you heard Puff lie a couple of times in the past. I didn't know. Nobody told us. We was just young. You knew. You heard him lie as if you didn't know. And then he put his boys, Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrow, right over there in Miss Waller's ear. Whereas that she should have been filing a lawsuit against Clive Davis and Arista and Bad Boy Records for the death of her son. Because they did not have the proper security for the Notorious Big. In the height of what was determined the East Coast, West Coast war in hip hop. So what they should do, it's too late for that now. What should happen? God got to decide that, bro.
Wow. Is there any charges they can put on Diddy for Biggie's murder?
No, they don't. They don't. They know, LAPD know who killed Big. They made a deal that those records will never be released in our time. We'll all be gone. All the people who was probably around there is 50 years. They sealed those records for 50 years. And then if they still seal them, and the 50 years come up and the 50 years come time, that don't mean they got to release the records. Look what they did to John F. Kennedy. His files. The 50 years was up. What they went back and they closed it.
Now, I know I have the pictures up with Big and, the 666 clothing line that he was starting to wear and push around that time. We know what he was influenced by. Like I said, I covered Big pretty well in the original video I did on him. That was that was the deep dive video. I could put that in the description as well for people that haven't seen the video. I think I had a clip in there from Pastor G. Lewis, the guy that we just had on the channel not too long ago, Craig G. Lewis. A lot of y'all like him as well. Y'all know he did that series on a lot of hip-hop artists back in the 90s. And mostly throughout that video, we were talking about how the devil demands a sacrifice. That's what most of the sermon was about from Craig G. Lewis. And he was talking about Biggie. And he showed this 666 clothing line, which a lot of us knew about once we started getting into all of this stuff, right? And so the basis of that, video and how I was doing the videos back then, we were talking about how he was sacrificed, which, of course, I still believe to this day, and how God demands a living sacrifice and the devil demands a dead sacrifice. And as you see in that clip with Gene Deal, it all went back to Arista Records and Bad Boy with Clive Davis and Puff. The same person that initiated Puff, P. Diddy, into the industry, taught him everything, the rituals. Puff was probably already, zesty, and I'm sure meeting Clive Davis and his friends, it just amplified it, and he became them. He became his environment. That's what it was. But it always goes back. You always hear Clive Davis' name in a lot of this, stuff about most of these rappers who died or these real industry gatekeepers. we know what Biggie was. They say Biggie was in the streets. He was surrounded by wolves, but he entered into an industry where now he was surrounded by snakes, and I don't know which one is worse. Probably snakes, because they behind your back plotting, slithering, hissing, all kind of stuff. And, he sold his soul for what he got, which is clear by the clothing line he chose to promote and the industry that he entered in. But unbeknownst to him, his life was being set up behind him by P. Diddy. And really, I can't even say unbeknownst to him, because I think in one of his last interviews, which I tried to find it, he started to talk about how he didn't feel safe and he felt like someone was coming for him. So, obviously him and Pac, they had that thing where they was always rapping about their death being right around the corner, in a sense, talking it up. But at the same time, it just makes you question a bunch of stuff. It's either they really felt, that their deaths was coming and it was going to be a short life and an early death, because it even makes me think about Dollar. And he has nothing to do with this, but the rapper Dollar. All he did was rap about death and his death and, so on and so on. And then he ended up kind of dying the same way that he rapped about, But it all feeds into the devil coming to collect. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what happened with Biggie as well, regardless with P. Diddy being behind it. Obviously he's going to use his agents and, and that's Diddy, Clive, and the other people that had a hand in it. But I also found that it was interesting that he said that LAPD knows who killed him, but they have everything sealed on a deal for a certain amount of years to where they will probably never reveal who actually did it. We all know they're in cahoots with each other, and that's a whole nother level that is not even worth going down the rabbit hole, because you'll probably never find the truth. I thought that clip was interesting, especially the part where he talked about how it traumatized him, how he defecated himself when he died. I could relate to that, because when I was in college, my roommate did the same thing. He wasn't murdered, but he defecated himself when he died in the house, and I was in the next room sleeping. It's something I would never forget. I'll never forget the smell. It wasn't a normal smell. It smelled like death, so I can understand that by him saying that about Biggie, and it's definitely traumatizing. It's something you'll never forget. But with that being said, I do want to move on and show y'all one more clip. I just want to show y'all how much of a snake and a liar Diddy really is. This clip is old. I've showed it long ago, like I said, in the first Biggie clip I did. But now that we know everything about Diddy, I want y'all to take a look at this clip again and just listen to what Diddy has to say about everything and the smirks that he has on his face. Check this out.
We were driving, everything was all right. We didn't know where we were going to. We just know the party was over, we were leaving. And as we were driving, in my car, I heard shots ring out. And at first, I just thought it was somebody shooting in the air. And just human reaction, I immediately ducked down. Everybody in my car ducked down. And then I heard somebody yell, they shot at Biggie's car. And then I just jumped out of my car and I ran directly to his car. And all the doors were open. And, he was hunched over. And I was just there. I was talking to him. And the security officer that was driving my vehicle, I told him to just jump in his vehicle. Let's just try to rush him to the hospital. And that's what we did.
Do you remember the last thing that you said to him or he said to you?
Yeah. He was just basically saying, he couldn't wait for his album to come out. That, he was just happy that he had finished it. And he was just like, I just can't wait till my album comes out. And he just felt that when the album came out, it was going to clear up a lot of stuff, because over the past 2 years, people had been talking about him in records. There had been the so-called controversy, and he had wanted to represent on his album of not even going in and feeding in towards that negativity. And he felt proud that he didn't do that. And he also did a tribute record to California called Going Back to Cali, and he had just felt that once the album came out, a lot of fans would understand that that he wasn't on that BS, and he was just trying to make good music and represent for everybody as a whole, internationally, East, West, Europe, Africa, wherever they was from that wanted to listen to his music and wanted to feel his point of view. He just wanted to accept them, and he wanted them to accept him.
We've heard a lot of different theories on what happened. One of the theories the police are working on now is a money conflict with someone out in Los Angeles. What's your theory?
I know that's completely not true. Biggie didn't have no money conflicts with anybody. And as far as my theory, it would be inadequate for me to speculate. I would just be like everybody else to speculate on who did this or why it was done.
Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize, Diddy has no emotion in that interview. To me, the way the guy that was interviewing him was looking at him was like, I don't even believe anything you saying. I think the biggest point of that clip, if you go to that clip, I'm gonna have to put all these in the description. You could easily find it just by typing P. Diddy on Biggie's death. Everyone in the comments, they didn't believe a word he said. And those comments were 7 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, way before any of these lawsuits start coming out. Obviously, the rumors around Diddy have been for a long time, but, no one believed what he was saying. People were just saying he has no emotion while talking about Biggie, but when he talks about himself, he lights up. And I hope he wasn't saying that Biggie's last words were about his album. That would just be wild. You clearly lying if that was the case. Hopefully he meant the last time they talked, that night maybe. But in a sense, just like others were saying, it almost sounded like he was promoting the album. Who really benefited from Biggie dying? Puff. Who still to this day makes money off of Biggie's estate? Puff. That was his biggest win in his career. Is now everything goes to him. Pretty much. I'm not completely sure on all of the details nowadays, but I'm pretty sure Puff still owns Bad Boy, as in Bad Boy and Puff still own the rights to Biggie's music. And just watching that clip, it just made me think about Gene Deal and him saying Puff lied about everything. He was acting like he didn't know that night someone was about to die. Gene Deal said, the security said, yo, if we go to this party, one of us is dying tonight. And that the only reason Biggie went was because it was set up for him to go. It wasn't something that he wanted to do. And it's obvious with Puff riding in a different car when they were leaving that was the setup. So Puff knew, he very well much knew that Biggie was going to die that night. It wasn't even in the same car when they left. So that could tell you, right there, the separation at the end of Biggie's career between them. It's hard to fake emotion. It's hard to fake being genuine about something. It's very hard to do, especially when you've already chose that side of evil. It's very hard to fake it. And still to this day, Diddy can't fake it. Even in that apology video about beating Cassie, that wasn't genuine. He forced that face. You could read it. It don't take a genius. It doesn't take me being a YouTuber to read it. Y'all can see it. And that's just what it's been the entire time. Diddy behind so much stuff, man. You'd almost be like, how can one person have, this much power and just now be exposed 20 plus odd years later? And everything still hasn't came out that I'm sure we will continue to find out more. But yeah, y'all, that's all I got for this video. Like I said, I've covered it before, so I didn't want to drag on points that, have already been on the channel. But that Gene Deal clip, it just sparked me, and it made me want to just talk about it again, just to give a little bit more coverage to Biggie and, keep exposing this stuff that Diddy has been behind for a very long time in the industry, man. So with that being said, y'all, I got part 2 to that Soul Tie video coming up next. So I really appreciate all the love we've been getting recently on the channel, all the comments. And yeah, man, with that being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm going to see y'all soon. I'm out.